The Mason who reads, however little, be it only the pages of the monthly magazine to which he subscribes, will entertain higher views of the institution and enjoy new delights in the possession of these views. The Masons who do not read will know nothing of the interior beauties of speculative Masonry, but will be content to suppose it to be something like Odd Fellowship or the Order of the Knights of Pythias, only perhaps a little older. My brother Albert G. Mackey, quoted from Reading Masons and Masons Who Do Not Read. Hello, brothers. This is Joseph with Masonic Improvement. I hope everybody is doing well. Today I'm going to present 5 essential books for every Master Mason. That said, all the links are going to be below. So if any of these books sound appealing to you and you want to add it to your Masonic library, then I have went ahead and did the research for you as to where you can find it. Of course, you can get it from anywhere, but I'm just trying to make things a little bit easier. This is actually going to be the second version of this video. I just recorded another version, and I had close to probably 15 books that I went over, and it seemed like it was probably a little too in-depth, probably too many books. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to condense that to 5 that I think are just the best of the best that I have in my library so far. Definitely, if you have any recommendations, I'd be glad to hear it. But don't come at me saying that this isn't a great list, because it's definitely not comprehensive. If I was to go over every book that I thought was great, we'd end up with something like the previous one, which was way too long, way too many books, and still didn't have every great book in it. So I have this broken down into 3 categories. The first book that I want to recommend to you is a General Masonic book. I think every Master Mason would benefit from reading this. It is The Builders by Joseph Ford Newton. And my green screen is acting up a little bit, so I apologize if it's looking weird today. So The Builders by Joseph Ford Newton. My version is old, it's falling apart, it's been read heavily, and just is not aged well. But this is, I have so many earmarks in this book. This is a great kind of introduction to the fraternity, I think. The issue with this book, the only complaint I have, is that it's an old book. And so the older Masonic books are generally harder to digest. You can't just read through it and be done. You sometimes need to go back and kind of reread what is being presented. There's also, I guess if I had another complaint, it's not a huge complaint compared to older books. The citations I don't think are great. But if you want a general overview of the fraternity, kind of especially about the origins, I think it's great. I think it's a great start. I think it's a great addition to any Masonic library. So the second category is just improving your lodge. Books that I think that you can read to get a good idea of maybe some changes you'd like to make in your lodge. I'm going to present them both at the same time. This is first one is Observing the Craft by Brother Andrew Hammer, and then The Traditional Observance Lodge by Brother Cliff Porter. So 2 great books. They follow kind of a similar theme. You're going to see that traditional observance in the title, and some brothers are going to be immediately turned off by that idea of this book. But the mark of the educated mind, especially of a brother Mason, is the ability to entertain and hear other ideas without feeling offended by it. So it's a worthwhile read. It digs into common practices all around the United States that aren't necessarily best practices. It's just how it's always been done. And they present some alternatives to the way that they do things. And with some pretty good success, it looks like. So it's worth reading. You don't have to read the book and accept everything as it is and feel as though you have to adopt everything in the book. You could treat it more like a buffet and take ideas you like and adapt them to your lodge. So that's why I would recommend both those for improving your lodge. So the next 2 are pretty esoteric. The issue with esoteric books is they're not always necessarily strictly Masonic. You're not going to see a square and compass on the cover or anything like that, but it doesn't take away from the value of the book. The first one I want to recommend is the Kabbalion. I never really got the pronunciation right, but it's a good book about Hermetic philosophy. It's written by the 3 initiates, and again, this is an older version, but at least I couldn't read through it and not feel like there was a Masonic connection. There were certain aspects that really felt like they belonged to the fraternity. So you know, I'm not going to say that this is strictly a Masonic book or even that it is Masonic, but I think as a Freemason, if you're interested in Hermeticism, then this is a great book, really, for anybody that's interested in Hermeticism. This is interesting. It's a good book. The second one I want to recommend in esotericism, oh gosh, the second esoteric book I want to recommend is Secret Teaching of All Ages by Manly P. Hall. Here's the catch. It's a very thick book. It needs to be treated almost more like an encyclopedia because you can just flip to whatever topic's interesting to you and read a little bit about it. A little bit. Because some topics he goes into quite a bit, but I don't think there's any topics that he spends a whole lot of time on. So it's a good book. I'll tell you the value I got out of this book. I read it like a book. I didn't treat it like an encyclopedia. And I was introduced to topics that maybe I wasn't aware of or maybe I didn't know very much about. And that was the value I got out of this. It put me on the trail to other avenues that were of interest to me, some of which I didn't even know were interesting to me. The issue, again, with older books is that citations aren't always there. In fact, I don't know that there are many citations at all in this book. But that's kind of the beauty of it, I think, also, is you have to do your own homework, and you grow a little bit more from that, I think. So, Secret Teachings of All Ages by Manly P. Hall. It's a great esoteric book. It covers just about everything. So, those are the 5 books, the 5 essential books I think every Master Mason should have. I would love to hear your recommendations and suggestions down below. Again, please give this video a like if you enjoyed it. Hit that subscribe button and share it with like-minded brothers that you think might enjoy it. I'll see you guys in the next one. Thanks again for watching.